Alright, let's talk about this Super Mario Brothers movie teaser trailer. So they had a Nintendo Direct and they showcased the first teaser for the Super Mario Brothers movie, and they also had brief interviews with Jack Black and Chris Pratt. And it's been a while for me to respond to it because there's been a lot going on, but I really wanted to make a video just sort of sharing my thoughts, as most everybody has at this point. It's been how many years since we've gotten any sort of Super Mario Brothers licensed Nintendo movie? I know everybody's trying to forget about the live action one, but I mean, come on. Those of us who were kids like the cheesy fun of it. My friend had it on VHS. I didn't see it when it originally came out because I wasn't born. But my friend had it on VHS, and in the mid-2000s we used to watch it, and it was cheesy, it was stupid, but we thought it was funny. So, but this time, we're getting something that Nintendo is heavily involved in. And it looks great. I'm going to say it. It looks great. I think it looks great. Everybody's praising Jack Black as Bowser. It's just Jack Black doing a deep voice. I mean, that works, I guess, for Bowser. I wasn't sure if people... I think people thought that maybe that wouldn't work for Bowser, but it does. It's still just Jack Black. I mean, you can hear Jack Black through and through it. Some people say, oh, I couldn't tell that was Jack Black. No, I could. I could hear it. And then there was Chris Pratt as Mario, which was way more controversial. Now, I don't know why, but for me, it completely blanked on me that he would even try to do a Brooklyn accent. It was the most obvious thing that he could do. And when he did it, I just kind of went like, of course, that's what he's going to do. Because that's what makes the most sense. You know, the past several iterations of Mario in video media have not been Charles Martinet's... is it Martinet or Marnet? I forget. It's not that over-exaggerated sort of spoof Italian type thing. No, it's definitely more of a grounded Brooklyn accent. That's what it's been in the past couple portrayals, so it just makes sense that he's going to do that. I don't have a problem with that per se, but I have other concerns more than Chris Pratt's voice. Because, I mean, first off, getting a list of celebrities like Jack Black, Chris Pratt, Keegan-Michael Key, Charlie Day, Anya Taylor-Joy, and all these other ones, Seth Rogen, ugh. They're getting all of these quote-unquote star-studded cast. The thing that bothers me about that is it's either one of two things. It's either Universal and Illumination thinking that this movie needs star power to sell, which it absolutely doesn't. It's a Mario Brothers movie. It's going to sell itself. I mean, for gosh sakes. Or number two, it's Nintendo and Miyamoto thinking that it needs star power to sell, in which case, that's equally bad, because, again, it doesn't. I'm so sick of this notion in Hollywood that a movie doesn't do good unless it has recognizable names behind it. I'm sorry, that's just not the case. Names are made in Hollywood. That's how it used to be. Names are made in these movies. You announce the name of some nobody as Mario or Luigi or Peach, and they perform well, and people go, huh, I like that performance. I'll go see whatever else they're in. You know, Hollywood used to be about creating names. Now it's just kind of like, oh, hey, guess what names we pulled out of a hat to voice our iconic characters. And this is not me saying they're going to do bad, by any stretch of the imagination. This is not me saying that Chris Pratt is going to do bad as Mario. I don't believe that he is. I think it's fine. Like I said before, I think the Brooklyn accent is fine. I don't think we've seen enough of it. Some of the clips, he wasn't even really trying with the Brooklyn accent. Like when he went, what is this place? That did not feel like he was trying to do an accent. That felt like he was being Chris Pratt. And I think that that's a weakness of his performance, is that you want to put on this thick Brooklyn accent, but if it's only going to come out in certain points, then it's going to really throw some people off. And it seems like such a minor complaint. I'm sure there are people already going, why are people complaining about his performance? Well, because we're going to have to hear it for the majority of the movie. And it's going to be trying to disassociate Chris Pratt with Mario, and knowing that he's supposed to be Mario. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. But I'm going to reserve judgment till the final product's out and see what his full performance is. But everything else about the movie I pretty much liked. I was very worried that Illumination was going to get overly stylized with their take on the Mario designs. Not really. There were a couple tweaks here and there in terms of some shapes. Mario's face, for instance, there were a couple tweaks in his design a little bit. He's got a collar. His shoes have laces. Bowser, for the most part, looks the same. I think he's a little bit thinner and maybe rounder in the face. I'm not entirely sure, but his shape, his figure, the way he walks, the way he breathes fire, that's Bowser. 100% that's Bowser. Whether or not you like the Jack Black performance, that's Bowser through and through. And the unsung hero of the trailer, the Koopas. You knew I was going to talk about the Koopas. I am a man who is obsessed with this Bowser baddie since day one, since I laid my little peepers on them. They look beautiful. I know some of them are cowardly, and I'm hoping that that's not a running gag with this. A couple people suggested they might be played like the minions, like literal minions. I don't want to see that. I hate seeing Koopas as incompetent, even though they kind of are based on the game. I want to see competent Koopas. But there's not much to them. I know they gave them spears and armor, which is different. And some of them, like some of the lieutenants, seem to have spiked shells. I noticed there was one lieutenant with a blue spiked shell. I thought that was interesting. So that could be something to explore further. But they look great. I mean, they look awesome. Kamek looks pretty much how he should. And he sounds pretty much how he should. They don't go with the over-the-top sort of, like, flying witch-type cackling voice. It's close. It fits. I forget who voices him, too. But it's really good. I really liked it. That whole intro sequence in the trailer of Bowser's Fortress, his flying lava fortress. It looks like what the movie's going to be is Bowser going through, I'm assuming it's going to be 8 worlds, collecting 8 power stars, and Mario and Luigi somehow have to stop him. And eventually, I think he's going to kidnap the princess, and, it's going to be a whole deal. I think the plot is going to be pretty predictable. I don't mind that. It's a Mario movie. I mean, it's a movie based on a game with a very, 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 very simple premise, which is either Bowser kidnaps the princess or he collects power stars, or both. So it makes sense to me if he's going to go after the power stars and the princess in this movie. That's a no-brainer. Nintendo seems to be working really closely with Illumination. My biggest concern is, believe it or not, Shigeru Miyamoto. A guy who people praise as a saint among video game designers. I have problems with Miyamoto. I've had problems with Miyamoto for many years now. Not that he's not a good guy. I think he's an amazing guy. My problem is how his creative vision tends to override certain things, and the more you dig about some of the decisions and choices that he wanted to make, it's just, some of them were not very good. And so I'm a bit worried that he's being as involved as he is, that he's going to kind of steer the ship in a weird direction at some point. His vision tends to change for different things. I'm not saying he's not a visionary, but he's, I don't know. They're treating him like a Walt Disney because he somewhat created Mario, or he pretty much outright created Mario, so he's going to be integral to the design, but I don't know. I've got my concerns about Miyamoto being involved, because I think a lot of the Nintendo projects have kind of captured the vision that he originally had, and they have sort of naturally evolved it the way that it should, instead of the way that Miyamoto thinks it is. Miyamoto seems to be the type of guy who thinks you have to reinvent the wheel every single time you do something, and I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm a little scared that he's going to try and reinvent the wheel with Mario with this movie and try to redefine a lot of things. And you can already see some hints of that in the trailer. Like I said, the Koopas are armored and with spears. They're not exactly, unarmed or just their shells like they would be in the games. Which, it makes sense. You're trying to make them out to be minion characters, a little menacing. But, I mean, overall, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with what I'm seeing. And I'm a guy who hasn't gone to the movies since Star Wars The Force Awakens. And for obvious reasons, I haven't been back since. But I'm actually going to go to the movies and pay money to go see a movie. For the first time in years. For this Mario movie next year. And it's gonna be a wild ride. I'm gonna wear my Mario hat and I'm gonna wear a Mario shirt. I'm really excited about it. I don't know if I'm gonna go opening day or not, but I'm definitely gonna go. And I wanted to elaborate deeper on the teaser trailer, but there's only so much that can be said. I wanted to save something for the Bad Gamepad podcast, but I don't know when we're going to record it next, and I have to figure out who I'm going to talk to with about it, and maybe get some notes together on some key points that I want to go in more depth about. But overall, I wanted to say that the trailer, it satisfied me tentatively. The tentatively part being that I've got concerns, again, Miyamoto, I've got concerns with Chris Pratt's overall performance. I think if he can stick that Brooklyn accent, I think he'll do fine. And then Charlie Day, if he can stick his Luigi version of that, which from what we saw in the teaser, even just him running away and screaming as he did, I like the tone of his voice. I think it's definitely Luigi. I like the way the dry bones look, too. But, yeah, I mean, this is exciting. This is a whole new era of video game movies. We've got Sonic the Hedgehog, which I still haven't seen 1 or 2. Detective Pikachu, still haven't seen that. And they've all been knocking it out of the park because they stay faithful to the source material enough, and they can tell their own stories. That's the key point of this. Stay faithful to the source material. This is something that Marvel doesn't understand. This is something that Star Wars certainly doesn't understand. They just pick and choose stuff from the source material. Disney just completely abandoned the expanded universe, which has told some of the best stories in the Star Wars universe, and that's a whole nother video for another day, probably a Rumble exclusive. But that's how you do it. And I think that's what Nintendo understands, is that there is a dedicated fan base. A lot of Mario is popular for its iconography, and they've nailed it in this movie. I'd be surprised if they didn't nail the iconography of Mario. I mean, we've seen POW blocks, we've seen mushrooms. I mean, just the initial poster and reveal of the Mushroom Kingdom, it's awesome. I mean, the iconography is there. Portraying the Mushroom Kingdom as being in a dense giant mushroom forest, it's not a new idea, but I'm liking that we're finally seeing that. You know, that's something that would have been really cool in Mario Odyssey, but instead it's just on, like, a floating island, sort of isolated. But it's not. You don't see a mushroom forest down below. As far as I know, you don't. I'll have to go back and check that, but I don't think so. But hopefully that's going to be a thing we see in future games. And here's another thing. Is the next Mario game they're going to do, is it going to be a tie-in game? I severely hope not. I hope it's not a tie-in game to the movie. I don't need that. I've got my own concerns about it being a tie-in movie. But there's discussion as to whether or not it's going to be 2D or 3D. There's rumors it's going to be 2D, which I'm really excited about because I love 2D Mario, I think more than 3D in most cases. Odyssey, I've talked about in the past why I didn't like Odyssey. But overall, I'm excited about the prospect of 2D. I just hope it's not a tie-in to the movie, because the movie needs to stand on its own. The movie needs to be its own thing that alludes to the games wherever it can, and tells a story that's coherent with the games. You know, it needs to be something that markets and sells the games. It doesn't need to be something that has a tie-in. It doesn't need a tie-in. You want a tie-in, play any 3D Mario game. So, that's how it should be. That's how it should stand apart. I don't want to see a tie-in, but who knows what Nintendo's going to do there, because there's going to be a new Mario, I'm sure, next year. There's been no allusion to it, because they'd be very foolish to not capitalize on the movie's hype and having a Mario game ready. I'm sure they've been developing a game alongside the development of this movie, so I'm very excited to see what that is. Even if it is another 3D one, I just hope it's more fleshed out than Odyssey. And it feels like it has more depth than Odyssey. Odyssey felt very shallow, but that's... Again, I've already talked about that, and if I haven't made a video on that, I might make a video on that in the future. But as a Mario fan, as a Mario-themed gamer, I mean, this is a dream come true. This is a childhood dream come true. This movie, I mean, it could... Who knows what it could lead to? It could lead to a series. It could lead to manga or comics. It could lead to just a resurgence of Mario popularity. And I'm really excited about that, because Mario is easily the best platforming franchise, or one of the best platforming franchises ever conceived. It is fantastically well. it is so good. And I think the movie itself is going to make billions. Or a billion. Maybe more than a billion. I think it's going to do that well. There are people who don't think so, but it's Mario. I mean, it's gonna sell gangbusters. It's going to do phenomenal numbers. I really think it is. And the hype around it from both adults, and I haven't seen anything from kids, but just from nostalgic adults and teens and preteens, the cultural phenomenon that is Mario and his fandom, it's going to do great. I think it's going to do great regardless of if it's good or bad. If it's bad, it'll drop off real quick, but if it's good or even decent, it'll do great. And I think it'll do okay because Nintendo is so heavily involved. But anyways, let me know what you think, folks, and I will see you guys in the next video. This has been Super Koopa. God bless. Have a good one. Peace.